This article was released back in 2020, 1 month after COVID was declared a pandemic. Trump was president, and he said, and I quote, Dr. Fauci is a very good person, unquote. The information in this article has only recently become acknowledged by Congress, where they're actually admitting the information in this article is true. But Congress has been unable to get answers, and no one has been held accountable. And here we are 5 years later, and Trump is sweeping this under the carpet again while he became president recently. Trump allowed us to be locked down unconstitutionally under his previous presidency. Let me read the article. Dr. Fauci backed controversial Wuhan lab with US dollars for risky coronavirus research. And this article is based on facts either observed and verified firsthand by the reporter or reported and verified from knowledgeable sources. And this is a Newsweek article from Fred Guter. And it reads, again, this is in 2020. Just last year, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the organization led by Dr. Fauci, funded scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and other institutions for work on gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses. And I'll just let everyone know right away, if anyone's not familiar, anytime they're talking about gain-of-function research, that kind of research is where they're trying to figure out how to make something, a virus, for example, spread and mutate and get a bunch of people sick. So it's very dangerous work. I'm going to continue. In 2019, with the backing of NIAID, the National Institute of Health committed $3.7 million over 6 years for research that included some gain-of-function work. The program followed another $3.7 million 5-year project for collecting and studying bat coronaviruses, which ended in 2019, bringing the total to 7.4 million. Folks, we're talking about taxpayer money here. We're talking about your taxpayer money. Many scientists have criticized gain-of-function research, which involves manipulating viruses in the lab to explore their potential for infecting humans, because it creates a risk of starting a pandemic from accidental release. Why don't, they should, how about just because it creates a risk of starting a pandemic, period? Forget about accidental release. There's no reason to create this stuff in the first place. SARS-CoV-2, the virus now causing a global pandemic, is believed to have originated in bats. U.S. intelligence, after originally asserting that the coronavirus had occurred naturally, conceded last month that the pandemic may have originated in a leak from the Wuhan lab. At this point, most scientists say it's possible, but not likely, that the pandemic virus was engineered or manipulated. And I just find it ironic and almost absurd that they took this Chinese bat virus, created COVID-19 right here in the good old US of A, and then released it over in China. What a nice trick. At this point, most scientists say it's possible but not likely that the pandemic virus was engineered or manipulated. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Dr. Fauci did not respond to Newsweek's requests for comment. NIH responded with a statement that said, in part, most emerging human viruses come from wildlife, and these represent a significant threat to public health and biosecurity in the U.S. and globally, as demonstrated by the SARS epidemic of 2002-2003 and the current COVID-19 pandemic. Scientific research indicates that there is no evidence that suggests the virus was created in a laboratory. And that's untrue. This is what Dr. Fauci said. I'm sorry, this is what the NIH responded with in a statement, and that is a lie. The NIH research consisted of two parts. The first part began in 2014 and involved surveillance of bat coronaviruses and had a budget of $3.7 million. You know, I find it ironic that they use the Chinese horseshoe bat for research that originated here in the U.S. and then later they concluded the research in China, and then it supposedly accidentally was released in China. It makes it look like it all came from China from the beginning. What a dirty trick! The program funded Shizheng Lai, a virologist at the Wuhan lab, and other researchers to investigate and catalog bat coronaviruses in the wild. This part of the project was completed in 2019. A second phase of the project, beginning that year, included additional surveillance work, but also gain-of-function research for the purpose of understanding how bat coronaviruses could mutate to attack humans. The project was run by EcoHealth Alliance, a nonprofit research group, under the direction of President Peter Daszak, an expert on disease ecology. NIH canceled the project just this past Friday, April 24th. Politico reported. Daszak did not immediately respond to Newsweek's requests for comment. Again, this gain-of-function research is very dangerous. It's very bad. It should be illegal, and that's what the point of this whole article is. Anytime they're talking about gain-of-function research, they're talking about how to make a virus spread and get a whole bunch of people sick and turn into a pandemic. That's exactly what they're trying to create when they're doing gain-of-function research, period. And the experts all agree on that. And that needs to be reiterated, plain and simple. The project proposal states we will use S protein sequence data, infectious clone technology. Let me underline that, infectious clone technology, and this gets into nanotechnology, by the way, in vitro and in vivo infection experiments and analysis of receptor binding to test the hypothesis that percent divergence thresholds in S protein sequence predict spillover potential. This gets into highly scientific terms and stuff. It's a little bit complicated if you don't know, but here in layman's terms, spillover potential refers to the ability of a virus to jump from animals to humans, which requires that the virus be able to attach to receptors in the cells of humans. SARS-CoV-2, for instance, is adept at binding to the ACE2 receptor in human lungs and other organs. What this is basically explaining is that this whole thing, it was a very skilled medical scientific plan to create something that would get a bunch of people sick. According to Richard Ebright, who I love, this guy's the best scientist out there, an infectious disease expert at Rutgers University, The project description refers to experiments that would enhance the ability of bat coronavirus to infect human cells in laboratory animals using techniques of genetic engineering. In the wake of the pandemic, that is a noteworthy detail. Richard Ebright is a brilliant scientist. Ebright, along with many other scientists, have been a vocal opponent of gain-of-function research because of the risk it presents of creating a pandemic through accidental release from a lab. How about the simple fact that there's no good reason to do that research at all? There's no plus to it. It's not like there's a pro to it and this is the con. There's no pro to it. The only reason for this research is to get people sick. Dr. Fauci is renowned for his work on the HIV/AIDS crisis in the 1990s. Born in Brooklyn, he graduated first in his class from Cornell University Medical College in 1966. As head of NIAID since 1984, he has served as an advisor to every U.S. president since Ronald Reagan. That's sad. That is really sad because he's pathetic. And I'll say this, we're going to talk a little bit later about Dr. Judy Mikovits, who's another brilliant scientist whose name was destroyed, and I'll explain it. Now, they're talking about HIV and AIDS, and Dr. Judy Mikovits, by the way, if you look into her and her scientific medical work and research, she came up with new ways to treat or cure HIV and AIDS, and her research and work was suppressed and pretty much destroyed by Dr. Fauci, who sought to make a profit by HIV and AIDS rather than a cure. You know, they say you can't make money if people are healthy. A decade ago, during a controversy over gain-of-function research on bird flu viruses, Dr. Fauci played an important role in promoting the work. He argued that the research was worth the risk it entailed because it enabled scientists to make preparations such as investigating possible antiviral medications that could be useful if and when a pandemic occurred. That's really absurd. So Fauci's arguing that, yeah, why don't we create something terrible that can get a whole bunch of people sick, that's really, really bad, that serves no good purpose, just so that we can figure out how we can then come up with a cure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's real logical. The work in question was a type of gain-of-function research that involved taking wild viruses and passing them through live animals until they mutate into a form that could pose a pandemic threat. Scientists used it to take a virus that was poorly transmitted among humans and make it into one that was highly transmissible, a hallmark of a pandemic virus. This work was done by infecting a series of ferrets, allowing the virus to mutate until a ferret that hadn't been deliberately infected contracted the disease. The work entailed risks that worried even seasoned researchers. More than 200 scientists called for the work to be halted, and I actually did a video about this way back in 2000 when this article first came out. The problem, they said, is that it increased the likelihood that a pandemic would occur through a laboratory accident. How about it just doesn't make any sense to do the research to begin with? But anyway, these researchers, these 200 scientists, were led by Dr. Ebright. Let me continue. Dr. Fauci defended the work, determining the molecular Achilles heel of these viruses can allow scientists to identify novel antiviral drug targets that could be used to prevent infection in those at risk or to better treat those who become infected, wrote Fauci and two co-authors in the Washington Post on December 30th, 2011. So they've been talking and arguing and stuff about this for years, and Fauci's been pushing for this and trying to do this for a long time. Decades of experience tells us that disseminating information gained through biomedical research to legitimate scientists and health officials provides a critical foundation for generating appropriate countermeasures and ultimately protecting the public health. You know, I hate reading quotes by Fauci because they sound so stupid. They make so no sense, and they're actually difficult to read. His words are just foolish nonsense. Nevertheless, in 2014, under pressure from the Obama administration, the National Institutes of Health instituted a moratorium on the work, suspending 21 studies. And if anyone doesn't know, the moratorium is, it's where they make you stop doing the work. 3 years later, though, in December 2017, the NIH ended the moratorium, and the second phase of the NIAID project, which included the gain-of-function research, began. The NIH established a framework for determining how the research would go forward. Scientists have to get approval from a panel of experts who would decide whether the risks were justified. The reviews were indeed conducted, but in secret, for which the NIH has drawn criticism. In early 2019, after a reporter for Science magazine discovered that the NIH had approved 2 influenza research projects that used gain-of-function methods, scientists who opposed this kind of research excoriated the NIH with an editorial in the Washington Post. Quote, "We have serious doubts about whether these experiments should be conducted at all," wrote Tom Inglesby of Johns Hopkins University and Mark Lipsitch of Harvard. "With deliberations kept behind closed doors, none of us will have the opportunity to understand how the government arrived at these decisions or to judge the rigor and integrity of that process." Now, before we end this, whistleblower scientist Dr. Judy Mikovits explained all of this from the very beginning, and she provided a lot of additional details during a bunch of different interviews. I think she has a book out. Yeah, she has a book and everything regarding the plan to create COVID-19. After this, under the Trump and Fauci administration, Dr. Judy Mikovits became a victim of character defamation and assassination, and they ruined her career in science, which is actually really, really sad. Big shout out to Dr. Judy Mikovits.
In your wild